Welcome back to Power CEO's Truth Behind the Business. If you're just joining in, we are talking all things artificial intelligence. And before the break, we were talking with David about, communication being key and how do we get that knowledge base to train our models and a little bit of the semantics, the metrics behind what we want to think about. But I want to ask you a question that I always like to ask myself, and that's, what are the things that CEOs and entrepreneurs are not thinking about? What are the mistakes that they make and that you wish that they would ask the question up front or avoid the mistake?
Sure. Great question, Jen. When you look at artificial intelligence, as we said earlier in the last segment, the quality of your AI is based upon the quality of your communication. Most people, when they're using artificial intelligence, they're using the 20%, not using the 20% of the power that will get you 80% of the results. They're focusing on write me an email, write me a landing page. When you look at the power of artificial intelligence, you can have probably one of your greatest growth partners. You have a strategist built in and asking it really powerful questions. Based upon this, I want you to interview me and ask me 3 questions, 1 question at a time, and help me solve this. I want you to act as a growth consultant and looking at my business. Here's what I've done. Here's the challenges that I've had. Here's what's worked for me. Here's what has not worked for me. Here's some of the ideas I have. I want you to think outside of the box and bring me non-traditional answers and help me look at my business from a different viewpoint. I want you to coach me, mentor me, guide me, and it will ask you the right questions. And you're going to be so surprised the kind of questions it's going to ask you. And then you'll be even more surprised by the results that you get. And to me, the thing that I love about AI and artificial intelligence, and especially how it's grown up over the past couple of years, it's gotten really powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've been using it for 6 months, if you've been using it for 3 months, if you've been using it longer, it can actually give you a 360-degree evaluation of you, who you are, what your thoughts are, what your processes are, the kind of questions you ask. And it can tell you your blind spots because it sees what you're doing and it also sees what you're not doing. So that's, to me, I've never been more excited about anything in business because it is freeing us up to do what we do best as humans. And also we can pitch and catch with it. It can be really an amazing strategy.
It truly is. And a lot of people complain about the bias in some of the open source GPTs and such, but it's really good to hear those other perspectives because we may not share them. And I leverage the technology the same way. I like to ask it, but I'm a coach and a consultant,
Sure.
And so are you. And so that's our roots. And so I want to ask you about that because I also started as a coach and a consultant and a strategist. And I ventured into AI and I have my reasons, but I really am intrigued by what was it for you switching from the growth strategy consulting world into AI? What was that impetus?
I still have my agency, it's Business Nitrogen, and we do growth strategy. I started using it to look at when I would come up with an idea for a client. I used it to challenge myself. I wanted to say, okay, here's the challenge the client has. Here's what we've done. Here's what's worked. Here's what hasn't worked. And how else can I look at this? I used it originally to challenge me. Something happened. I heard conversational AI for the first time a couple years ago. And I said, one day, this is going to change everything. And I said, when I heard it, I'm like, oh my gosh, imagine if I could put, behavioral science into it. Imagine if we could put empathy into it. What if we could use our best sales practices or customer service practices to operate every time? And I started looking at the different technologies that were out there. And originally I was looking at white labeling something. And then once I looked at the white label agreements, I said, I can't put my customers, their success into something I don't have control over. So I used the process by the book, Who Not How. And I found the who that could help me create the vision that I wanted. And then I got together with a partner of mine and we made it even bigger.
Well, and great minds, when we match those minds together, the sum is always greater than the
Absolutely.
2 component parts. So talk to me a little bit more about the unique perspective that you have. You know, you and I, we talked before the show about being involved in this as soon as we learned about it. I mean,
Hmm.
years ago, we've been playing with this for years. So we're a little bit ahead of the curve, but let's be real, no one's an expert.
No,
Anybody who says they're an expert, folks, they're wrong,
we're fake.
because it's happening and it's evolving so rapidly that we just know like a little bit. We just need to stay on that wave and be surfing that wave instead of crushed by it. So what you've seen in the last couple of years and the evolution and what you've done with your AI application, talk about what's happened to now, and then where do you see us, and what should CEOs and executives be thinking about 2 to 5 years from now? What's coming down the pipes? Because we've both been on this ride and we've seen it escalate. So what are your thoughts in that area?
Well, I'm going to answer it this way. The same thing I told my team once I started playing with OpenAI and ChatGPT the day that it came out. I had a team meeting and I said, either we're going to be part of this and it's going to help make us better, or we won't exist a few years from now. And that statement is truer today than
Mm-hmm.
it ever has been. And companies that are entrepreneurs and CEOs, unfortunately, many of them are saying, you go learn this. They're handing it off to their team members instead of playing with it themselves. I implore the entrepreneurs, the executives, to play with it, to be your best use case, to understand the power of it. Because when you play with it and understand the power of it, you're going to be able to know, to be able to direct your team. You're going to be able to give them feedback and encourage them to help make your company better, to help your vision come to reality. And through that, you're going to see that it's not necessarily that AI is just going to do all the tasks. It's going to help you become more efficient, to be able to create more throughput. And eventually, yes, some jobs and some roles may disappear. However, the people through learning this are going to find ways that they can contribute differently. And I do believe that that's what is going to happen over the next several years. Is we're not necessarily going, people may be replacing certain jobs, but because they're learning how to use it, they're going to be able to contribute at a higher level and create more throughput and be more efficient.
Yeah, and I want to highlight something that you said for the audience, because I thought it was really, really important. And you said CEOs are passing this off and saying, you go learn this. However, CEOs, we drive vision, we
Yes.
drive strategy. It's our job to understand the technology and to think about, okay, what's the next level of this? Because if the other folks that we're putting this off to knew how to do that, they would have our job. And so I'm going to just reiterate, if you are an entrepreneur, if you are a CEO and you're not playing with this, you're probably tied to the tracks, and AI is coming your way. That train is almost at your door. It's time today to play with it. I don't care how, do it in a sandbox, safe environment, and start learning about it and understand and ask yourself, what is this going to do for me? And how is this going to help me with my vision and my strategic goals in the future? Because I think that inherently is our role as we drive these companies. So David, we've talked about a lot. We've talked about where we think it is. And I concur. I think that if people are not leveraging technology this year and at least getting that plan in place and starting the process
Yes.
next year, they won't have an opportunity to do so, because it's really happening. What do you want to encourage everyone who's watching today to do today, no matter where they are? Like, maybe they're afraid, because a lot of these CEOs have their heads in the sand and they're afraid of this. Let's just be real. It's disruptive.
Yes.
What is your advice to those people?
There's two things. One, number one, if you already have an account, a ChatGPT account, even if it's a paid version, it's actually listening to everything that you're doing. Ask it, say, I want you to give me an unbiased, truthful insight to who I am, my behaviors, and my blind spots. I want you to be brutally honest, don't hold anything back, and share it with me. You'll be surprised how accurate it is if you've been using it. If you haven't, take the first step. Start asking, say, hey, give a challenge that you haven't been able to solve, or something that you solve and ask for a different perspective. It's all based upon the amount of information. Be as thorough as you would if you were giving it to your business growth consultant, your strategist. Say, here's what we've done, here's what we haven't done, here's what's worked, here's what hasn't worked. I'd love act as a growth consultant and ask me 3 questions, ask me 5 questions, ask me questions one at a time. I'll answer those, and then I want you to give me a different perspective or how I could look at it differently. Once you see that, I believe that they're going to have that light bulb aha moment and go, oh my gosh, this is cool. And then you'll be hooked like we are.
Oh, yeah, well, I hope so. I think that's fantastic. Strategy fuels impactful AI utilization and vice versa. And we're seeing that as we move forward. Vision, adaptability are super key as we are moving forward in businesses. Thank you so much for the executives, the CEOs who are watching this and want to innovate in their business and may be interested in learning more about your experience. How can they reach out to you?
Go to sababa.global, SABABA.global. Personally on Instagram, Dave Asarnow. On LinkedIn or on X, David Asarnow.
David, it's been absolutely fabulous having you here. We have just a brief moment, and AI aside, you're a growth consultant. You've been doing this for a long time. We've talked a lot.
Yes.
I know you'll be able to hit this out of the park, but for anybody who's watching, AI or otherwise, that may feel stuck in their business, or maybe they're in a mindset that they have fear around something, what would you recommend they do?
If they have fear around
a change or an adaptation, we're facing the AI wave.
Sure. What I often suggest is just close your eyes. I literally, it's like you got to take yourself out of yourself and say, if I could just wave a magic wand and I could create my business into anything that I want a year, 2 years, 3 years from now, what would it be? What would I do differently? What would my business look like? How am I operating in my business? And get really clear on that vision. And then just ask one other question. If I don't take it, what do I need to do it? And if I'm not willing to take those steps, what will my life, my business be like 2, 3 years from now? And say, you gotta, sometimes, fear, one of my friends, he quotes fear, forget everything and run. Right?
Yep.
And so instead of forgetting everything and run, it's stepping and acting in spite of the fears, in spite of the things that hold us back. And that's when magic happens. When we step through that fog of uncertainty, that all of a sudden we see the clarity on the other side of that.
Absolutely. Thank you for expertise and for being here with us today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And you, yes, you. Unfortunately, all good things come to an end, including this show, but you've got excellent action steps to take right now, not tomorrow, not next week, but today, so that you can move forward through your fear, move forward, take action, and create that positive impetus and grow your business. We will be back same time, same station next week. Until then, win today, win this week, and I'll see you next time.
This has been a Now Media Networks feature presentation. All rights reserved.